Good morning, good afternoon, LinkedIn friends, HubSpot Nation. Welcome to another episode of Let's Build a HubSpot Super Admin with Lucy. How are you doing today, Lucy?
Hi, Chris. Doing great. Very frustrated about working with sandboxes this week, so we're going to talk about this.
Yeah, kind of a big deal. Something that people have been on about for a long time. One of the things that has kept HubSpot out of certain conversations when it comes to especially enterprise implementations and the needs to test things out before we just build them in production. As easy and nice as it has been for small businesses to just go and do stuff inside of HubSpot without having to worry about, bringing down the whole system, which is not the case in most other systems that are not HubSpot. But because that has been the focus, we've had a sandbox once we get to the enterprise level of HubSpot where we have to build everything to test it. And there has been no push to production. So you had to rebuild it all again in production. And new beta came out this week that says we might not have to do that any longer.
And I can understand a lot of super admins super frustrated with this because, as you were mentioning, a lot of other tools since a lot of years ago have these features to push into production, especially when you're working with software, right, or websites. So it has been unbelievable that HubSpot waited until 2025 to enable this, and it's still a beta that you need to request access, a private beta. So we're still waiting for that. So if someone in HubSpot product team could make this process faster, please, we would appreciate it.
Yeah.
And but I have experienced so closely this past few weeks working with a lot of clients that were optimizing and that they want to see the almost like a real portal, but in the sandbox, just to test things out, to train the team, to implement different processes, different automations without breaking everything. And it's been so time consuming that you say, okay, let's just start that passing from production to the sandbox. It doesn't sync everything. It has a limited amount of records that you can sync. So then you have to export everything either manually from APIs or with other tools. So this wasn't native at all since the beginning. And now, okay, you're testing, you're doing everything. So now you have to move everything manually back from the sandbox into production. So yeah, I'm very happy with this new feature, although people need to know that to be able to use this new feature, at least for now, you will need to create a new sandbox. So no any current sandboxes that you're using are going to be able to be used for this. So, okay, so all current projects are not going to be able to benefit from this. But okay, let's just put our hopes in the future and say, okay, from now on, any other new project could use this. So yeah, I'm very happy that we are going to be able to create objects, properties, workflows, lists. So I think those are the most important things. I'm still not sure because we haven't tested it so much yet. I'm still not sure if everything is going to be tested. I think new things are going to be created in production, but I don't know how it will behave. And this is something that we always need to take care of, right? If you're pushing something from the sandbox to production that already exists in production, you need to take care not to duplicate everything, especially workflows. So, and this is always a question that everyone posed to ask us in the Super Admin Bootcamp. How do I audit my workflows? If I need to merge two accounts, how do I know, or how can I be aware of those workflows that come from one portal into the other one that are not going to be overstepping or duplicating or doing any mess? You have to do it very thoroughly. You have to pay attention. It's not like, yeah, copy paste and everything explodes. No, yeah, that's going to happen. But the same thing is going to happen with the sandbox. So
Yeah.
we don't need to, we need to remember that everything that you're still doing in the sandbox still has things running in production. So it's not so
Right.
easy. It's not going to be as easy as clicking two buttons and that's it, and everything is solved and magically appears everywhere.
Yeah. I think it would be good. I'm glad we're having this conversation now, like before it gets, into the outside of private beta, let's say, because I think like it's important to take a step back and understand really why this has not been in place yet, right? Because it relates to why a Salesforce admin is very different from a HubSpot admin, right?
Yes.
These other systems that have not been HubSpot are were built to be built from scratch, right? And up. And because of that, every company, it's rare to find like a super templated version of these systems. And this is Salesforce, it's NetSuite, it's all these other, platform systems that have been in place for a while. And for some of you out there, maybe an easy example is websites,
Hmm.
right? Like when you use WordPress, it's built to be built up from scratch. Whereas HubSpot, you have templates, you have modules, right? And that doesn't always fit every situation, but it also enables uh, the user experience to be a lot easier and enables non-technical folks to get involved in the process of building and maintaining HubSpot. From a CRM administration perspective, it's been the same way, right? And that's where HubSpot has built this concept of, most businesses don't want to build everything from scratch. They don't want to hire a team of admins, like systems administration. If you look up that, like the IT world, like that was needed when you are building everything from scratch in your own way, and
Yeah.
you need to align a bunch of people. Or what really happens, you end up with one person that can make all the fixes and do all the things. And you better believe that person is using a sandbox to do all that stuff in, because every decision that they make could impact the entire system, where HubSpot has not been that way, right? And I'm talking easy things that we take for granted, which is go and add an option to a drop down field, right? That's the kind of thing, like we can do that very easily in HubSpot, knowing that it's highly unlikely that it's going to impact anything else in the system, right? Versus that's not like that whole property changes in these other systems and it can break a lot of stuff like that. That's just a small example, right?
Yeah.
But now that the system is more complex, we have 6 hubs, we have AI, we're trying to automate, we're trying to build all the workflows. It's necessary for many of the things that we now have access to really use the power of HubSpot. So let's get into, if you're an admin that has been used to doing things in production, it's going to immediately feel like double work, like, or it has been. And that maybe this is why the push to production is so important. But also the maintenance of 2 different setups. How should admins think about it in terms of, maybe the question is what really should be done in a sandbox and tested first, but also what things maybe, like maybe not.
That's a good one. Yeah. So let's just think. So the first thing that I can think is what not to do. So minor things like you were saying, maybe adding an additional option to a property. So small things that won't really impact the main functioning of your production portal. I would directly do it there. I wouldn't do it in a sandbox. Firstly, because I think that doing those type of changes in the sandbox are not going to be, for the moment, eligible to be pushed into production. So you're going to, if you just want to test things out, okay, you can do it if you feel more comfortable, especially if you're a new super admin or if you are not really familiarized yet with the portal. So, for example, I can imagine a lot of agencies with new accounts trying to test things out before doing it in production with the clients and trying not to mess around. Okay, I can imagine people doing that, but it wouldn't be the best usage of your sandbox. So whenever we work in sandboxes means that we are changing, for example, the data model and the associations, or an automation that is going to be touching a lot of those stuffs, associations, calculations, custom objects, custom cards, everything that is going to have a huge impact in how the teams work, that should be tested in a sandbox first.
Yeah.
Um,
And this is where like the visibility that they've given us within the last year to go click on a property and see all the things that it's part of, right?
yes.
Like that's your signal. Like even if it is, I'd say even if it is just a little drop down adjustment, like if it's used in like 50 things and views and workflows, and that's the moment, right? Where even if you know the system, right? Because you're the admin, you probably own that, you probably know, you probably knew it was in all those places. That's where you start to risk like high impact. Right?
But you think, the funny thing is that you think that people know. The other day, we were actually talking about that in the boot camp, and they actually said, most of the students actually said, oh, I didn't knew this part existed.
That's
And we
true.
said, okay, wait, wait a
Yeah.
second. And we were talking about, for example, the native automations, wherever you tick something and you said, okay, associated contact with companies by the email, you tick that, you turn it on or you turn it off. They didn't remember that existed. So we're talking about so many basic stuffs that giving everyone the capacity to deploy from sandbox to production is like the ability of changing the names of the objects that we discussed a couple of weeks ago. So this could be something amazing used for good. When used wrongly, this could be such a mess. So it's not for the light fainted. So you need to know what you're going to do here. So
Yeah. Because I'm glad you brought that up too, because I wasn't even thinking about like a lot of reasons people love HubSpot. And this is things like at the base level. These are people come into HubSpot and the fact that they can make their own views and change their views. They haven't been used to that when they come from Salesforce, where it was so hard just to see the things you wanted to see. And that's a good example. If you're enabling that from an admin level, you won't know like what all the 50 things are. And it might be surprising for you.
yeah, and
But
I
I
love.
think
Sorry.
that's where like um it's going to be interesting. And this is where we come back to awareness, like at all costs, right?
Yes.
Because the balance that they're going to have to find, at least until there's like a syncing button, right? Where you just know production and sandbox. I don't know how that works. I'm not in IT, but like the fact that you have 200 and some product teams, like with the green light to push what they feel needs to be pushed. If we had had this sandbox situation that everybody else has, like that is the kind of innovation and speed that you have to stop. That's why a lot of these other companies have like once a year, twice a year, like update intervals. Obviously, HubSpot takes it to the extreme, and maybe it doesn't have to be that fast, but now we see them also out front of this AI, moment. And so I think understanding about how product updates and how all this stuff just comes together. Again, we come back to awareness at all costs.
And what do you think? Do you think that betas should be tested first in the sandbox before enabling them in production?
I think that makes sense.
Depending, of course, on the beta, not everything. No.
Right. No, but I think that's probably one way they've gotten around it in the past is sometimes the ability to enable just for yourself as a user versus the whole organization. We know we also don't always have that option. Um, so I think this would be a thing that probably makes sense. And again, that would be nice. Like, how many times we have to click on updates sometimes to get them going. But yeah, that would be the whole purpose. Like, should be seen as a beta instance of your portal where you can test and try. And maybe this will help. Probably will help people be more aware because they'll be more likely to try things out. And then if it does work, just be able to push it, to the portal.
I think I told you last time about an example of a client that someone in the team, because they had the ability, enabled the list partitioning by teams. Everyone got kicked out of the lists, and we had so many days until they turn it off. So those are the kind of things that the team wasn't able to work with lists for at least 1 week. So those are the things that you shouldn't test in production if you don't know, or if at least you didn't pay attention of the implications of turning that on, right? So yeah, I was thinking about that example, meaning, okay, that should have been worth of testing in the sandbox maybe. The other thing was, any super admin could be doing this. So we always come back to the permissions, right? In HubSpot, not because someone has the super admin permit means that they are tech savvy or that they know how to work with sandboxes, or maybe it's not their entire responsibility. We all know that permits has been a pain in the we know what. And a lot of people and a lot of accounts still have super admins that shouldn't be super admins. So enabling this now is going to raise the risk a little bit that any super admin could go play around in the sandbox and, let's just push into production. Yeah. And they won't select, or they will select everything. And again, a whole mess would be done in the portal, in the production portal, right? So yeah, I think I'm set to always be that person thinking about the cons first, but I think that is our work to preview and to try to avoid messes and conflict and data being corrupted. But I'm glad to be the the portent of sad news, but to people to be aware, because yeah, we all read the little text that is there in the product update. Yeah, you're going to be able to push into production, la la la. But then there are 2 knowledge base articles, 2 super long, that everyone should read before going into and enable or requesting the private beta, right? Because you need to understand how this is going to work. And not any super admin should have the possibility of working or using this feature, right?
Yeah, this is where I'm excited about a lot of the AI development that I see happening. A lot of it's related to specific user behavior, specific user roles, specific user, permissioning. And I think that AI layer is obviously going to be super important to regulating, that kind of activity, because it needs to be like, the more complex the system is, the more granularity you need. And what we appreciate about HubSpot is it usually has erred on the side of like letting you do the thing versus restricting you, where other systems, like, they will lock it down if there's any chance. And that's where there's this balance. No, people like me need people like you, Lucy, because I want to just be over here like, oh, let's just enable and empower everybody, do the training we're supposed to do, and then it'll be fine, right? So we don't always make time for that stuff, though. So we do have to be aware of all the risks and downsides.
You already know, with great power comes great responsibility. So,
Exactly.
and I was just fantasizing when we were talking about, imagine when we have like the AI assistant for the deployment, and that we could say, for example, okay, let's just move this workflow from the sandbox into production, but If this happened, please stop it. Or if this happens, please ignore. Or if this happens, so that we can, because right now we cannot do it. It's like, okay, let's just push it and see what happens, and let's just hope everything works. Everything works accordingly or as expected. So maybe if we could have that type of control, that I know that when we do things through the API, developers can do all that stuff. That's what make it a little bit slower, the process. But hitting one button and saying, okay, go, that's not giving us that possibility. So
Yeah.
I can
So basically,
imagine,
you're
yeah.
just asking for what happens in one specific place of the portal right now when we decide to just upload a list and send a big old email to it. HubSpot will stop that shit like in a minute as soon as it knows that all the emails are bad or it's spam, and it won't let you send any of the to the rest of the emails. So we need that level of support, the coaching. And I do think that's what,
Yeah.
talking to enough product managers, that's how they're thinking about AI support and AI assistance, in that, the humans don't have a good track record of handling this stuff well. It's either because it's such a complex issue and there's lots of data and there's just lots of things, it's either you have the humans who, you know, really hold everything close to the vest and don't try anything new unless they're absolutely sure everything has been tested. And it takes months, and by the time you get to it, sales is using already some outside product to actually do their job. Or you just have the mess around and find out group, which is really like most of the HubSpot ecosystem, I think.
But I think
um,
it's like you said, because you said, okay, HubSpot is giving us the great opportunity to be flexible and to be able to do all this stuff. Yeah, I can agree on that. But I can tell you that a lot of super admins today, they don't come from a technical background. I don't come from a technical background, but after 14 years working in this, I think I have learned a little bit. So I know what is going to happen. I can preview, I can imagine the impact that this is going to have. But maybe someone that is new, that comes from a content writer background, doesn't know how technical stuff work. They have been given the role by accident of being super admin, and they are being pushed to be doing this stuff, but maybe they are not ready. So I can understand that people could have the responsibility, but not the technical knowledge. And we have said, and we have been saying, and we'll keep saying, that the admin role for HubSpot has become more technical in nature, because it's software. We're dealing with software. It's not like we're doing something in a kitchen and we need to know about ingredients. Yeah, you need to know about ingredients, but how to mix them, because you can cause an explosion, a chemical reaction in your kitchen. So it's the same thing. And I still see that a lot of super admins, they are becoming more tech savvy, but they are not ready yet. So I can imagine maybe, and we always said that, okay, all of this is possible if you're a super admin. So we're making the super admin role now like a bag of cats. It's like, okay, everything goes like, okay, you're super admin, it's your responsibility. So now I'm thinking about, while we're talking, should we have different types of super admins? Should we have
yes.
actually, we have had news in this past couple of weeks about permissions to create records, objects, all the stuff, associations, the data model. So I think we should have different profiles of super admins too, because it's
Yeah.
not the same thing.
Right. No, I think that's where, like you said, there's just this bag of stuff. It's like, well, we can't assign it to a sales seat or a service seat, but like not everybody should be able to do it. So I guess it goes over super admin. Like a lot of the Commerce Hub stuff, like payment notifications, like, oh man,
Exactly.
like just because you're a super admin doesn't mean you need to know about all the payments. But that's for a long time. And that's why the accidental admin situation is so detrimental. Like for a full HubSpot platform implementation, you need a marketing manager, you need a sales manager, you need a help desk leader, you need a success leader. And like none of them, most of them should not have access to impact all the other places, right? But when we assign things, I think they're getting there with all these user role, all the user object and the granularity of the permission structure
Yes.
will allow for, different levels of admin, because really, unless you have a significant amount of experience and background in how like the data model and the systems thinking capabilities, which is where my mind goes when you say like, we need more technical admins. It's not just the dev, right? Which is
No,
where a
no.
lot of people go to. It's this systems mindset that knows if I do this thing over here, I need to be aware of the team and how it might impact the rest of the portal. So I could definitely see, because they've also introduced the different, like more, like a user can have more than one user role, like a
Yeah.
sales permission set and a marketing permission set. So it sets up for that. So maybe we are nearing, the end of the super admin specific label, because that
Yeah.
that label gets given when we don't know how else to give the permission.
And in the meantime, the partner admin access is getting more limited every time. So
Oh
yeah,
man.
that is a reality. But yeah, I was thinking about um yeah, you were totally right when you're saying, and yesterday we had this discussion with a new prospect that is a big university, and they were super focused on telling us, okay, I need you to implement the help desk. Okay, we said, but what are the current processes that you have in HubSpot? Yes, we have the sales team, the marketing team, da 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 da. So, do you have a definition of the processes, how this should be hand over to customer success, into help desk? No, that is your role. No, 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 no. That is not going to be my role. But who is the project champion? Oh no, you're going to be the project. No, no,
uh,
I'm not going to be
that's
the project champion. I'm going
that's a
to be the
trap.
implementator. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it was like a whole hour discussion, and they couldn't understand because he was saying, "But I want you to implement the help desk." Yes, but I cannot implement just the help desk. I need to understand how your whole portal, your whole business is operating to understand if everything is connecting properly, how the process flow, how life cycle stage will be. Everything is connected. It's like manifest. Everything is connected.
Yes.
So I still don't. I still cannot understand how people think that their business is just marketing, just sales, just being an admin, or just HubSpot. I keep hearing, no, but we use HubSpot just as a CRM. Yeah, it is a CRM, but what do you mean just as a CRM? Yeah, no, we just follow up on the opportunities. Okay, so you're thinking about on the sales side, but it's not just a CRM. The CRM is everything. So
Oh
I
yes.
I still there's still a lot of education needed. So I wouldn't minimize this deployment to production to something. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's the greatest news of all times for people that are working usually in sandboxes with clients and trying to do a lot of improvements. Yes, I'm going to be very happy with that. I'm going to save a lot of time, but we still need to be responsible about that. And we're not, at least for this stage, we're not going to be able to do a lot of things because it's not going to be, well, we already said it's not going to be adding one simple new value into a property that's not going to push it. It's not going to be eligible to be pushed. It's not that you're not going to be able to do it in the sandbox. Or, for example, I was thinking about conditional properties and all that stuff in current existing pipelines. That's not going to be pushed for the moment. Or, well, existing workflows, when you do adjustments, no, it's just going to push new workflows. So you should turn that off and put the other one on. So those kind of things that we need to understand on how this is going to work. Maybe in 2 months, this is going to change entirely and it's going to be more flexible. But yeah, for the
Yeah.
moment, we need to be very, very aware.
Yeah. Definitely a step in the right direction, necessary step. But as we talk through it, there's probably opportunities for admins to get more buy-in and do more enablement outside of production in a way. And I would advise like find those tasks that you would love for them, like they need to keep track of their own contacts and they need to update their records. There's probably a way to like do some of that in Sandbox and do it in a way where the learning process can be transferred to the production environment. And now they don't have to redo it, right?
Yeah.
And how efficient and that enablement could be, because that's another thing. Like when we think about academy certifications, and you have to, for some of them, you have to actually make stuff in a live like production
Yeah.
portal to prove that you did the thing. And some people are like, okay, I'll just do it. But others are like, I don't know. I don't want this to go out to anybody. Like, and so that's probably some opportunity, there too. And this whole like, lastly, like Copilot and its rebuild. I did this in our demo portal, right? Asking it to just create 20 contacts, 20 dummy contacts with data. And it did it. So as AI becomes more and more available to us and seemingly more helpful, doing this, then you know what? That's probably what drove HubSpot to get this done. If we're being honest, this is AI first, Lucy. This is we
And
get
I
the
was,
we get the good stuff because they're AI first, right?
but I was thinking about, is this now the excuse to be enterprise? Yeah, I think, well, it's worth it when you have the ability or when you have the need to have a sandbox and then of course deploy into production. That's a good reason to go enterprise, and this probably means that you have a more complex business. Yeah. And I was remembering this other feature that is kind of related to this deployment, that is the multi account, because the functionality is similar. So when you are a user in different accounts of the same holding or group of companies, you can connect them. And I have a couple of clients like that, and their super admin is always recreating twice everything in one place and the other one, because when they do marketing campaigns, they have to do it for both brands, and they have to recreate all the emails and the landing pages, and so everything is twice. So when this new feature came out, I said, oh, this is fantastic, because now you can clone it and pass it into the other portal, finish the final adjustments because of brand and all that stuff, voice, whatever, and then you already have it. So it's kind of similar, but between two production portals, right? Two different accounts, two production portals, but that are related. It's not the same thing here that we're testing and then we are sending into production. But I was thinking, okay, it's still the same things that we can pass. It's workflows, it's lists, objects. No, we cannot pass objects between different portals. There was a third one, I think. Properties. No, what was it?
Yeah, we're definitely moving towards, and it all relates together, like full platform build out. Like this is why I want everybody to embrace the complexity. It doesn't have to be complicated. Like these are different things, but when like a guaranteed way to make it complicated is suggesting that we can keep it simple inside of a complex system that is trying to manage complex relationships and behavior and all this stuff. Because what you do, you start with keeping it simple, and then you just build a bunch of simple processes on top of each other that don't interact. And now you have a complicated like system, right? So all of these things go into their crafting of the platform so that it can be like they got guardrails there to try and prevent that. Like that's why some stuff there's good friction, and that you have to associate certain things, like the whole Commerce Hub, right? Like there's a reason that you can't just associate everything in Commerce Hub to whatever other object you want. And it's frustrating for the people that know how to do this stuff. But it's also, there's a reason for why they do that, because it relates to the money, and there's lots of regulation that gets in the way of just being able to build however you want. So all these things go into it. And as everything develops, like with AI as a layer to help that enables the speed. But you can see signals like, for example, the moment that Breeze Copilot, has access to the entire platform, right, easily, probably around that time, Sandbox will be able to push everything and multi accounts. Like we'll be able to push all the assets. So it's interesting to see, and you can get these signals from help desk versus sales workspace versus customer success too. Like if they build functionality in certain places, it means things for the rest of the portal, right?
Yeah.
Because if Copilot can't access it, that means multi accounts can't talk to each other either, as an
No.
example, right?
No, but in the past, we used to do it like, okay, we connect to different portals with code in the middle that process information and instruct each portal what to do, right? So it's like with webhooks and calling any other platform outside that process information, right? But that's the thing, you needed a developer to do that, and everything was super measured. And the same thing with AI. So now people is starting to code with AI and starting to prompt, and they think that they know what they are doing, and they believe that AI is giving 100% accurate responses, and that's still not 100% true. So you shouldn't rely on that. And I don't know, I can imagine an internal AI in HubSpot trying to help mitigate the errors between migrations, or between multiple accounts, or between the sandbox and production. But when you go outside HubSpot, when you go to ChatGPT or any other OpenAI tool, yeah, people needs to be, first it's a security breach, and then they need to be careful on what they are instructing, because something could always break. So I love embracing AI, but again, people need to be more careful about what they do, and let's just not seen thinking that we know it all and that we are fixing everything with AI, because yeah, we're gonna see the results of this in a couple of months or in a couple of years, with portals being completely out of control and everything breaking and codes not functioning and prompts that, or not even prompts, code that people prompted is not working. And yeah, that we told you that that could happen.
Maybe you should join me and Nico on a weekend show where we can get into this philosophical conversations. But
Yes, but
uh,
again, I would test AI in the sandbox, maybe.
yeah,
If you don't want to impact anything, if you want to be bold and start playing with AI, okay, do it in the sandbox.
yeah,
If you have it, you can use it. Because
yeah,
there's still a lot of people that maybe, let's just be real, some people are not using the sandbox all the time, because as you were saying, it's time consuming, you have to keep it up to date, the information is not getting all time updated in the sandbox. So the sandbox is actually a workspace where you go to test something, deploy, and then you forget about that. For the moment, we are limited in the amount of sandboxes that we can create, but let's just imagine and dream that we could create a sandbox like a project every time that we want to test something. So we would have our sandbox for data model and automations, and we will have another sandbox for AI features. And we can test there only that. I think that would be a great idea. HubSpot product team, if you're hearing. Uh, so I think that we can have a more controlled environment, testing environment, because that is
yeah,
actually a sandbox. It's a testing environment.
yeah.
So
No,
I
that
would
makes
want to
sense
play around with that.
for sure. Because a lot of the value of HubSpot has been when doing things in production, like you get to user feedback like much faster, right? Because it can be very easy to develop this great tool or workflow or whatever, and you
I
could
think
do that in
HubSpot
the
is calling.
sandbox. What's that?
HubSpot is calling. The phone is ringing.
Right. You can do that in a vacuum, like, and then you put it in front of the rep, and they're like, "Oh no, like that's not going to work." Right.
Yeah.
So understanding this balance of first of all, you should never be surprising any reps ever with anything that you're building out.
Yes.
But finding this balance between, testing in a controlled environment that's not going to impact, everybody else in the portal, but making sure you're not walling off everybody else in the portal as you do the building and the strategy of the portal, right?
Yeah.
So
And
like always, every big
I think you said something really important there. Other users should have the possibility to go into the sandbox and test there, because another misconception that we have is that it's only the admin that is going to be the one testing there, and once it's ready, everything is super top secret until everything is ready and you're going to see it in production. But teams need time to adapt, to test, especially if you're doing something that is going to impact their processes and their work, right? So they should be able to go in the sandbox, test it around, train them, show them how it's going to work, give them, for them to give you feedback. So that is important. And we're not, people is not always used to be doing that. They keep the sandboxes as very secret, and you can always give you only, they don't need to be touching or doing anything if you don't want to, but I think it's best if you do that.
Yeah. Yeah. This is one of those things where user accepted testing or UAT
Yeah.
is something that I didn't know about until like 5 years into my HubSpot journey because it wasn't a thing in
Yeah.
most of the ecosystem, right? It's just like, hey, we're doing this production, making it a part of the process. But again, it's also the value of what HubSpot has enabled people to do. Because when you start to add things like UAT in, that's when we get to this IT project world where
Yeah.
every single thing we need has to go through this 3 to 6 month process. And it's just, again, finding the balance between like, let's be flexible, but let's be safe, right? I think is what we're trying to say here.
Yeah,
And
but you know, a lot of these things that I usually discuss with developers is like, yeah, but this exists in our industry, or in our métier, in our job role, since the beginning of times. It's just that the marketing, sales, and other areas are not used to think that way,
right.
right?
Yep.
So it's like we are gaining unconsciously more concepts from the technical point of view, from development, from the SaaS point of view. Even though you could work in marketing, content, whatever, because we work with software. So that is the thing.
Yep.
And
We're
yeah,
growing up. We're
no,
growing up
and I
as an
think
ecosystem.
it's a transition time. And I think that today we're discussing this, and maybe in 3 or 6 months, everything would be AI interface, and none of this will matter. Yes, this will happen in the backend. So maybe if you want to access the backend and go check, you could. But I think everything would be okay. Us telling, okay, Copilot, grab this workflow from the sandbox that is called ta 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 ta, ta, and please push it into production, and please avoid this, and this. Okay,
Oh,
okay, yes, give me a second, and this will happen. I can imagine that happening, but well, not yet.
kind of like I do with Claude MCP right now.
Exactly, exactly. But I think Rhapsody will arrive at that time.
Yeah.
People will do onboardings automatically with AI. People will do
Hmm.
testing. Maybe I remember I remember website developers working on the navigator, on the inspect window, testing there without having to go into the code of the website and changing that, just to quickly visualize what the change would look like.
Yeah.
And I can imagine ourselves doing that with AI without needing even a sandbox. I can say, hey, Copilot, can you show me what my data model would look like with this new object, with these new associations, and how this would change with a new revenue object, whatever, whatever. And Copilot, let's just imagine, giving us a preview of what that will look like before we start building it. And if we say, okay, I agree on that, I like it, let's just go and build it, that would be pretty innovative, right?
By
I,
end of
I can
year.
imagine us working there
By
like
end
that.
of year.
We'll
I'm
see. We'll
putting that on
see.
the
We'll
record.
see. Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
I'm not so sure. Maybe some parts, maybe. Inbound always promises a lot of things, but then since the announcement until the real implementation, hmm,
Yep. So we'll see.
I don't know.
Inbound is going to be interesting this year for sure.
Yeah.
And we'll be here, uh, helping everybody on the way, making sure we don't forget about how to be a great
Yeah.
HubSpot Super Admin. Um, this has been fun as always, Lucy. I'm sure something will come up. Maybe we can talk about either what do we got? The AI, connectors, got
One last
cloning.
thing. One last thing that maybe would be good to have in the sandbox is to having credits to be testing with the credits there because that is not currently possible too. So I know that we might be talking about
Yeah.
credits soon,
Yep.
but that would be a good idea too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Agents. People would like to try and test agents in the sandbox too.
Yep. Okay. Yeah.
A lot
Maybe
of
credits is the next conversation. That's an interesting one right now.
yeah, and I
Either
would
way,
love to have another session once we are able to start testing this deployment to do to go over the good things that happened with the deployment and the bad things that didn't work with the deployment.
there you
So
go. So unboxing the new sandbox is what I'm hearing.
yeah,
That sounds like a plan.
the test drive.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. We hope it was valuable for viewers and listeners. And if you've already been in the sandbox or really want in, just give us a holler and we're happy to chat about, any questions that might come up or any
Yeah.
concerns you might have. Thanks so much, Lucy.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Have a great day, everybody.